Hello, podcast listener. This is JJ along with Tucker, and we welcome you to JJ Meets World. In this episode, we're going to talk about Jurassic Park. We're going to talk about the new Turtles movie. We're going to talk about this weird timeline thing. And no, we are not on drugs at the time of this record. Actually, I don't know that for absolute certain for Tucker, but I know that for sure for me. I don't know it about our producer, Ken, though. We'll have to find out when we talk to Ken later. Ken, shut up! And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Tucker and I both saw movies yesterday. I saw a movie that I saw probably for the 50th plus time. I went and saw Jurassic Park as part of its 30th anniversary re-release in 3D. And the 3D conversion on Jurassic Park is real good.
Okay.
It adds to some of the jump scares. You know, it just creates that depth. Like in the Gallimimus run, you know, they're right there in the foreground and then it extends the background. It's great.
They're flocking our way.
They are, like birds. I did find one thing, though, that I've never noticed that I don't like. Grant and the kids are way off, right? Nobody knows whether the Grant and the kids are after the T-Rex attack outside the paddock, right? And Dr. Sattler, along with Ian Malcolm, Robert Muldoon, the gameskeeper, and John Hammond, formulate the plan where they have to go to the utility room shed,
basically,
and they have to turn on all the breakers and everything, right?
Yeah. Reset like the power to the whole island.
But that doesn't start the telephone system. They have to get to the control room after they turn on all the power to actually use the Unix system to upload everything, right? So they get the phones on. The girl, Ariana Richardson, I can't remember what her name is. Lex gets the phones on, and somehow Grant is able to figure out, like, oh, I just have to push pound 76 to get to the bunker because there's no master list.
That's true. He does just get a hold of him, doesn't he?
But then he calls, and then Hammond picks up the phone, like it rings right in the bunker, and he's caring for Ian, and he goes over and he goes, Grant? How the hell would he know?
He just says Grant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, he goes, he's like, call the helicopter. And then you hear, like, it's a great moment. It's a good moment for Spielberg where you can only hear Grant yell, he's coming through the window. And then, Grant! But how would he know that Grant is even there or that he was a part of the plan? He was never part of the plan. That's some shoddy filmmaking right there.
That's, that is a little bit of a plot hole, I guess.
Why didn't Kathleen Kennedy stand up and be like, excuse me?
Yeah. I mean, Jurassic Park is in my top 5, if not my top 3 favorite films of all time. And I completely spaced out that this was even going on.
Oh, well, good news. You got another week.
Oh, I do? Okay,
yeah.
So I think I'm going to go hit it.
It's good. It's real good.
Right, because, I mean, I don't know when the next opportunity will ever present itself to watch Jurassic Park in a theater setting.
Yep.
Right. And can you watch it without glasses and be fine, or do you?
No, you have to wear the glasses.
Yeah, wear the glasses.
Like the whole movie is in a full 3. Also, the next time you watch it, when they're going to the island for the first time in the helicopter, there's a back and forth between Jeff Goldblum and Attenberg that you need to watch, because he does this hand motion with him, like where he touches his leg.
He pinches his leg or something?
I've never noticed.
Oh, really?
That before.
I've honed in on that ever since I was a little kid. I was like, oh, he pinches his leg right there, and I thought that was so funny.
And Richard Attenborough like flinches at it. It shows you how just like needlessly irritating Ian Malcolm is.
What awards did that movie pick up?
Oh, that's a good question.
Go.
I don't think it got best directing, but I'm pretty sure visual effects. I will do some half-assed internet research here.
I am in love with the work that Richard Attenborough does in that movie. And in particular, the scene where he meets them in their trailer on their dig, and he's already gone into the fridge and popped some champagne that they were planning on for a special.
I guarantee it.
You know, the days today, I guarantee it. But that whole exchange he has with Grant and Sattler is so effortlessly performed by Attenborough. And he takes what would be on paper a fairly maybe clunky dialogue and is able to make it just flow effortlessly. And you completely believe, yeah, this guy probably has a dinosaur park somewhere.
Yeah, right. Like you buy the fact that this dude has been like, and it didn't happen overnight, right? But he's been working on this for so long, you know, the fact that he funded their dig already and he's going to continue to. And there's a great acting moment too where they don't want to go and they're giving excuses. And he goes, "What if I funded your dig for a further 3 years?" And he's not like saying it with whimsy, but he's like almost pissed off that they won't just go. And it's subtle enough where it's like you don't see him just be angry, but you can hear it in the tone of his voice of like, I'm so wealthy that you're going to do what I'm telling you to do.
I guess the word angry isn't something that I read into that scene. For me, it's just more of he's such a showman. Right. That he loves the slow delivery of information because of the impact it has. And to me, their hesitation isn't we don't want to go. It's, you know, we would love to, but we have all this shit going on. Like, we can't just leave.
They're in the middle of a dig. And leading up to that point, you do get the showmanship from him. And this is the thing that, like, I don't think a lot of people say no to John Hammond. Right. Which is one of the reasons that, like, he detests Ian Malcolm so much. Everything that he does, Ian Malcolm has like something back to it.
Right.
Okay.
But he's like, listen, I know they're going to say yes to this because this is life or death in their world for sure. And so the way I'm going to reveal it will be in stages. I could compensate you by fully funding your dig, and you can see them both go, whoa, that's pretty cool. And then he goes, for a further 3 years. Right. And that's like well, damn.
And they go, what do you say? When's the plane take off?
Right. I mean, that's the payoff. He knows he's going to say that from the moment he's like popping the champagne and says, you know, the day is today, I guarantee it. Right. So it's like this whole unraveling of this thing.
I've always wanted to know, in that scene, he goes, you know, it helped me get back on schedule. I've always wondered, was that him having a line like misread because he's British and he would normally say schedule, but he's like, oh, we want you to say schedule. Like, and if it is, brilliant to keep it in editing. By the way, this is what it won. Best visual effects. Okay. No big surprise there. Best sound effects editing and best sound.
Okay.
So this movie takes away not a lot, like considering how huge it has become over the years.
You know, another strength of Jurassic Park, the first one, it's been ages since I've seen the other movies. And so I think I feel confident in not judging them against the same criteria. But the original Jurassic Park is able to convey massive scenes, emotional, massive scenes, with just the looks of the actors looking at each other without seeing the thing itself. So, like,
you're talking about the reveal of the first, like,
there's the reveal of the brachiosaur for sure, but I'm also thinking of when they watch the raptors eat. Is it a cow?
Yeah, and you don't see anything. It's all
and there's the one shot where you can see that Hammond isn't watching. He's watching Grant, and he's smiling because he's just feasting off of the mixture of pleasure and revulsion that Grant is going through. And you can see, they tell you so much about Hammond's character and what he's in it for. Like, what is the thing that drives him is getting that thing to happen.
Did you ever read the book by any chance?
So actually this year I tried to read the book, and I could still pick it up again. I got about a fourth of the way through it, I think, and I liked it. It was fun to read and go, oh, these are the changes that were made from the book for the movie, and they make a lot of sense. But like in the book, there's no meeting like that in a trailer. He just like calls up Grant, and he's like kind of a dick.
Yeah, they really rounded off and made John Hammond this lovable guy, because in the book they kind of portray him as this Walt Disney, like evil Walt Disney.
Yeah, rounded off is a really good phrase for that. You know, or almost like a Wizard of Oz who's already in front of the curtain.
Bingo. Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
In the book, there's a couple things that stuck out to me that I never really got that they didn't actually incorporate in the movie, and I think in good ways and bad ways. One of them being the beginning of the book talks about there's like a baby in a crib, and it gets attacked by like some compies that's like off the island of Costa Rica, and like they saved one of them, and no one could really identify what kind of a lizard this was that attacked a baby, and you get more of those things. And then the race to get back to the visitor center is because they noticed some raptors got onto the ship that is heading towards the mainland, and they've got to stop and tell the ship not to go into port, but to actually come back because there's loose dinosaurs on it. And I think they did a good job adapting that to be like, no, we just need to get out of here. We just need to leave.
Those raptor scenes in Jurassic Park.
So good.
Oh, my God, they're so good.
Right?
And it's mostly like puppetry. A little bit of CG here and there, but yeah.
I think the reason that it still stands up today is like how good it is because CG wasn't the tool that they went for first in a toolbox. It was the thing like, we can't fix this yet. So we're going to use every physical thing that we can do, and then only in the spots where we actually can't make a Tyrannosaurus Rex like walk around. But today it all would be CG. You wouldn't have any puppetry at all, and you wouldn't build a scale-sized T-Rex that's covered in foam latex that when it lowers its head into the shot looks like you're looking at a real Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, the first movie, none of the other movies have captured the sense of wonder that the first movie gives the viewer. You're feeling the awe of all of these people, these characters seeing dinosaurs for the first time. And so that's just crazy. Every other movie after that, it's mostly like, oh, yeah, those are dinosaurs.
You know what I think the movie that does the best as far as like what the secondary part of the story should be is Jurassic World.
Okay.
Where they've set up like, it's a decades into, they've actually got the park up and running, and InGen has been bought out by another company. And then what would happen if the park like actually had a bunch of people in it, like a bunch of tourists, and everything went to hell. And what I think is interesting is when you watch that first Jurassic Park movie, John Hammond is making a biological preserve.
Right.
So it's not a zoo. It is something where, they have dinosaurs that were no-shows, right? That didn't come up to the paddock edges. And it would have been a horrible, like, park to go to because you drive in the car and that's it. Right?
Yeah, right.
Even like when they're showing in that, one of the most bizarre scenes is when they're having lunch and they've got all those projectors, like slide projectors that are firing. That would be annoying as hell. And everywhere you look, there's a bright light shining on your face. No, thank you. But they talk about Jurassic Tennis. It is neat for me to see how like,
Jurassic Tennis?
Jurassic Tennis is one of the things that they advertise.
Oh.
And like, of course you're going to have these weird like in-theme stuff. So, and in Jurassic World, they actually, they're like, and for those taking a part in the Jurassic Tennis tournament, come to blah, blah, blah. And it's interesting. I think like the fully fleshed out park would look different in a modern day than it would have like, in the early 90s, like when they were prepping it. And it's sold out. There's sponsors for everything. It's Verizon Wireless brings you the, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I think that must be another reason why I love Jurassic Park so much, is the fact that it is a 90s time capsule.
Oh, so good.
Including the graphic design of the logo, which is the primary reason why I have over 60 copies of Jurassic Park on VHS on my shelf. I have always been just fascinated and in love with that fucking logo.
The logo is so good.
It's so good, and they would never design that today from scratch. It is a very, very, very 90s logo. Did you ever play any of the Jurassic Park video games?
I played the Super Nintendo one.
Okay. I played the Sega Genesis one, where you can play as either Grant or a raptor.
Uh-huh.
And I need to like get reacquainted with it because I used to play that game so much that it was like I could speed run the game. Like I just knew like, yep, jump here, do this, do that. And then as an adult, the few times I've tried to pick it back up, I can't find that rhythm like at all. To me, it feels like, oh, really? I could have swore this handled differently. So it hasn't been like picking up a bike versus like Super Mario or Ninja Gaiden or something like that.
I could speedrun Home Alone 2 Lost in New York on this Super Nintendo.
No shit.
Yeah.
I actually want to watch you do that.
Oh, yeah?
I think that would be a lot of fun. We'll do a podcast of it.
I love that.
We'll watch you speedrun Home Alone 2.
That was one where someone gave it to me as a Christmas present, right? Like some aunt went out and goes, I got you a video game. And the half-assedness that went into making movie video game tie-ins is just bizarre because some of them are so, and you're rushed, right? You see a script and you're like, okay, we're gonna put this there, and then you find out that stuff gets cut from the movie, but they actually left the video game because they're like, well, this is already, the boss is already this thing, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. And they're like, okay, Kevin's gonna throw ornaments because it's Christmas time, and it's just garbage.
Okay, but however, it's garbage, but you can speed run it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the story behind young JJ putting in the time to learn that game and speed run it? Like, was there a family vacation that you just did nothing but play that because your parents were fighting? Or was it like, no, just for some reason that Christmas I wanted to play a Christmas themed game, or I was so excited about the movie that I wanted to play the game?
I was a guy that when I got a game, I had to beat it. Right?
Really?
Yeah. I had to beat it. And the only game that it took me until I was a full-fledged adult to actually beat without any cheat codes or anything was Sunset Riders.
Okay.
Because Sir Richard Rose at the very end of that game, it's impossible. I don't know who. I'd like to see the game makers actually beat that one. But so I got it. And here's why I could speed run through it so easily. The game, you can beat the whole game in less than 20 minutes.
Okay.
Like, it is maybe 4 or 5 stages tops.
Okay.
And you think, oh, most of this cartridge must be hollow because it's certainly not taking place up with memory. My God. And there's also something about the artwork that was created in that 16-bit world where they're trying to show you cutscenes from the movie, but they're done in still images.
Yeah. I could speedrun Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh, yeah?
And Aladdin on both on Sega Genesis. And I do that about once a year. At least at some point in the year, I'm like, I need to play Sonic 2 and just to run the pathway again and go, yep, there you go. And I'll beat it in like an hour or something like that.
When you're not moving, like if Aladdin is just standing there, is he kind of like bobbing back and forth a little bit?
He has a shifting animation that he does, but it's not like a straight up bob. So it's very different from the Super Nintendo one.
Yeah.
Super Nintendo one, I don't remember what his resting animation is, but the Sega Genesis one is designed where it actually looks like they traced animated stills from the movie.
Nice.
Versus like the SNES one is like a completely rebuilt, is like a totally different style. But the Sega one, I just was obsessed with it as a kid. It's a fun game. You can beat it in about an hour, maybe hour and a half. Same with Super Punch Out on Super Nintendo.
Love Super Punch Out. My sister, I don't know how. So there's a little battery that must be inside of cartridges that keep like the storage for the memory going. Well, the Super Punch Out battery for our Super Nintendo still works because I fired it up a couple of years ago, and my sister still has the record on Gabby J, and it's like 9 seconds.
Nice.
Like, I'm like, how did you do this? And she's like, I don't know, I just did it. And it drives me nuts because no matter what I mean, my best time on Gabby J is probably like 20 seconds.
That's what I would assume for myself as well. Yeah, that I don't think I'm beating any character in under 20 seconds.
Gabby J, yay!
I mean, that game is fucking awesome.
I want to get to the movie that you saw too, but I also want to double back because I had 2 thoughts for this week's podcast I want to throw out there, and one of them is that 13 years ago, Red Dead Redemption came out, which I think might be my favorite video game of all time. It's a cowboy video game set in the Wild West from the makers of Grand Theft Auto, and you have either honor or dishonor, so you can either become, the hero of the West or the greatest outlaw they've ever seen. There's you hunt in it, so it brings like, and you can you hunt like a deer and then you skin it and you can sell the meat and you can sell the pelt, and it is you gamble in it, like you have to go and play poker against all these things and like beat them, and then you play liar's dice, you got to play blackjack, and you have to play it in multiple locations to be able to finish everything off. The game is so good, and they just re-released it, ported onto the PS4 and 5.
Okay.
and the Xbox Series X. It's not remastered. It's certainly not remade. You know how they do those like remakes to kind of up the graphics and things like that? It's available in 4K, but it's a 4K transfer from the old stuff. It still looks the same way as it looked when I played on the PS3. Now the load times are instantaneous.
I'm sure.
It's great. And it's $60, which is a lot for a remade game that came out 13 years ago.
That's what it probably came out at.
It absolutely did. But I bought it. I bought it on day one, and I've been playing it. And in fact, last night I stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning playing it because my wife was out of town. And the storyline of it is so good. And the basics are this: you start out as a guy who is being made to go interact with an old gang that you used to run with like a decade earlier. And the reason being that is the U.S. government has kidnapped your wife and child. And they said, listen, we need help apprehending this man, and you're going to do this for us, whether you like it or not. And so you end up going to confront this old gang member of yours. You get shot, and a nice woman from a ranch kind of nurses you back to health. And then you start with nothing, right? You don't have a gun. You don't have anything. You have to learn all these skills, including things like horseback riding and how to shoot and all of these things. And then you progress it because you decide you're going to need help to get to this gang member. So and areas of the screen that open up are amazing. At one point, like a huge chunk of Mexico opens up to you, and they speak Spanish. When you get go across the border, the game is so good. And I've talked to you before about how like it turns from day to night. Time passes. And one of the things you can do is you can go onto like the top of a bluff and you can look out over this enormous landscape because the playable area is just massive.
Okay.
And like a rainstorm will start in the distance and you can see you can hear the faint sound of thunder and you can see lightning and rain. Okay. And then eventually the storm moves your way. And then you can be in this rainstorm and you watch animals react to the storm. Yeah. It is so good. It is so picturesque and beautiful, and the gameplay is awesome, and the characters are amazing. At one point, you meet a grave robber who prefers to talk to the dead rather than people because people are mean.
And you're a big proponent of Red Dead number 1 over number 2?
I am, yes.
Right? And when did number 2 come out?
Like 5 years ago.
So what is the big difference that makes number 2 lesser? Because you would think that with all of that ability to make a world like that they would just improve upon that.
So they decided we want to make as realistic of a video game as we possibly can. So Red Dead Redemption is a little bit like Oregon Trail in the fact that, you need to get supplies and things like that, but you walk around like you walk through cactus. You can get attacked by an animal.
Sure, it's not like ultra realism.
Right.
It's just like there's some realism mechanics in the game.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, at the when you're getting going, the storyline is also very good. It ties into Red Dead Redemption 1. It is a prequel essentially to Red Dead Redemption 1, and you play as a different member of the gang.
Okay.
But like meat rots if you don't like get rid of it and sell it soon enough. When you kill a deer and you put it over the back of your horse to bring it into town, you get blood on your clothes, and if you don't go and bathe, people treat you differently and your health begins to suffer because you've got like and so the thing that I didn't like about it is like I applaud the fact that they wanted to go for realism, but they got too much when it comes to realism, whereas like this takes some of the fun. Like if part of a video game is you having to take a bath,
right,
that is not as much fun as you think it's going to be.
It's reminding me of that Onion skit of World of Warcraft, where you can play someone who is playing World of Warcraft.
Very much so.
I want to find my game for the winter. Like I'm kind of on the hunt for that right now. I might try to, and depending on what I find, like, it's going to be, that's the thing that I'm going to play in my winter cave this year. Then I need to figure out, like, what am I getting a PS5? Am I getting a new computer? What am I doing to be able to play that thing?
I got to tell you, I am loving my PS5.
Yeah.
Like, I'm loving it.
Okay. So what are you playing on it? Obviously, Red Dead Redemption.
I played Hogwarts Legacy.
Okay.
The fact that it's reverse compatible for so much stuff, like anything I had on the PS4, I've been playing. And so, like, Marvel Avengers. Did you ever play the Avengers game that came out for the PS4?
No.
It's really good.
Okay.
Like, it's a ton of fun.
Okay.
It's great. The Miles Morales Spider-Man game that came out is really good. There's just, the catalog is wide open. And one thing that I do like is the PS Plus, when you're a part of that membership, it opens up this catalog of games that you can play anytime you want.
Got it.
So essentially it's like a free rental. Now, do you ever go to the library and look for games? Somebody told me you can get like PS4 and PS5 games at the library.
I had no idea. No.
So you could go and like check out a game.
Interesting. I would want the one with the physical drive.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's what I got. Yep.
I just wish it wasn't designed the way that it was. Like it looks. It looks dumb.
It looks like it's supposed to make coffee rather than play video games.
It looks like a whale is coming out of the ocean to try to communicate with its alien species that it's attached to in the sky.
I don't understand. Like I think for a long time, it's been like we're trying to make the PlayStation in particular look like a part of your, like you wouldn't be embarrassed to have this out next to your television and it could be a part of your entertainment system. And I'm like, no. In fact, what I would love is for the front of it to look like a bunch of like books so I could put it on a shelf and never have to like really think about it.
Yeah.
And the thing that no one really realizes of these modern day video game consoles is the heat sinks on those things are massive.
Yep.
They create a huge amount of heat. And so you can't put it, like even in an enclosed shelving unit that's 3/4 enclosed, like they will overheat.
Yep.
And so most of the time you have to leave it right out so it can breathe like it's a friggin' house plant, right? You don't want to kill your Christmas cactus. And that drives me bonkers that they haven't figured out a way to make it a little more, hideable, especially because you don't need a line of sight with controllers anymore.
Oh, you don't?
No. It's all
nice.
done like with like a Bluetooth like adaptation.
I am really thinking the PS5 right now, but I think because I'd like to play through the rest of the Batman Arkham series.
Oh yes.
Because I remember trying to play the next one on the PS3, and when you're in like Gotham swinging around, it just lags.
Yep.
Because we made it so you could play it on the PS3. We didn't say it would be a good experience that you'd be having.
We really wanted you to buy this on a higher generation system.
Yeah. But at the same time, if I went and got a computer, I could play those games, but also other games that are not available to me. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. I'll take my time. It's not winter yet. Like it has to be those times where I'm like, okay, I'm staying indoors for the rest of it. That's kind of what I want to do for the rest of my year as I'm finishing off these like other creative projects that I've been working on. Like I'm doing the sound design at our opening show at Theater B right now. And obviously I'm editing the stuff that I shot for AJ Goes to the Dog Park. But once those things are off my plate, I want to take the rest of the year to be like, my life is my job, the podcast, and resting at home. And that's it.
Taking a walk on a crisp fall day if you want, but not having to be anywhere.
Yep. And just being like, you know what? I'm going to just focus my energy on those things right now.
My wife asked me.
Not take a million things on.
My wife asked me what I wanted for my 40th birthday, and I said, I want a weekend where I don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I can eat grapes. I could, I don't know, take a bath. I could do whatever I want during my weekend of my birthday.
Yeah.
Will it happen? Absolutely not, because I'll end up being like, I'm going to have a fear of missing out. I got to do something. Okay, so I saw Jurassic Park, but then you saw
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
The
I saw
latest
it with
Turtles movie.
my brothers Brian and Solomon.
And what'd you think?
I loved it. I had a great time. First of all, let me just say, hey, thank you for turning in a movie at an hour 45.
Oh, right? You don't have to sit through 3 hours of schlag.
Like, I bet Oppenheimer's great, but my goodness, I was really glad to know that it was just going to be that. I had so much fun watching it. They really capture the notion that this is a family, and it's a very new version of Ninja Turtles, but it totally harkens back to our Ninja Turtles in so many different ways. And you and I were talking about it before we started recording, but the casting in this is, for as far as the celebrities go, is so amazing. And normally you would look at a movie like this with all these celebrities playing these roles and you go, oh, it's stunt casting because you want these names attached to it. That's why Angelina Jolie is like doing voice work on so many movies,
right?
Because you want the star power of her name to help sell this thing. And I'm sure that you still want their star power, but they created characters around each of these voice actors that was so like specific to them. The standout being Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko, who is amazing in this movie. I love Post Malone as Ray Fillet, who just always wants to sing Ray Fillet. And you have to think that they thought, to have a name like Ray Fillet, wouldn't you just be trying to sing it all the time? And they went forward with that. But the scene stealing character in every single scene he's in is Master Splinter.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan as Master Splinter is an absolute revelation. And I never thought I would. I love this Splinter so much. He might, at this moment, be my favorite Splinter, which is weird for me to say. Because
and he's a totally different Splinter than we have ever seen before.
Yeah, because I have two favorite Splinters before him, which is our original cartoon growing up Splinter and the first movie Splinter, who gets kidnapped, right? And they have to go find him. And he has that beautiful conversation with them, with his like essence talking to them over a blue fireplace, you know? So this Splinter is so good. And they make him an actual believable dad where he is kind of strict with them, but he's doing it out of fear and wanting to protect them. And you can see that he's got some prejudices that they want to not have to be held back in. And I think like everyone in some way can relate to that in some way.
You know, one of the things that really like fed into this is, so this comes out after we experienced the pandemic and so many people became afraid of going outside, right? Became, you know, agoraphobic in so many ways. And that's what Master Splinter is in this movie, is he's afraid of going out into the world because he does not trust the world. He does not trust people. Yeah. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who really are like, oh man, he's speaking right to me. He's talking to me. Right. And like my kids all want to go out and do these things, but I'm not ready to go to the middle of Times Square.
Yeah. But and also that, you know, that people have changed, you know, like this is a different generation of humans that you're dealing with, you know, who don't have the same necessarily in large fears, but
Ice Cube too. Let's give it up for Ice Cube. You know, as Superfly, his delivery in a bunch of these, like a bunch of tortoises, is so good. Yeah. It's just really good. Also, you get a lot of real close-up shots of Bebop's nipples.
Yeah, you do.
Like,
I love the pierced nipples
right?
on Bebop. I loved Bebop and Rocksteady. I think Seth Rogen and John Cena's Bebop and Rocksteady is straight. It's point on. Like that's a fantastic, you know, casting choice.
Also, the change in April O'Neil to have April O'Neil be like a high school weird girl, like who's searching for acceptance. That was a good choice.
I love that they have an extended puke scene, and and
it goes on forever.
And I never thought I would say that because puke scenes make me sick typically, but that one didn't. The way that they handled it, just, you know, April O'Puke, that did not bother me. So no, I really liked that. I loved the personalities of the different turtles. I loved the design choices they made to differentiate the turtles, but not go so far that it's like the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle ones where they're like just covered in insane detail and they just really go kind of nutso with it.
They're like, well, if they had been mutated turtle people, this is what they'd look like. Like, no, there's no such thing as if there were. Yeah. We can make this up as we go along.
I love the animation style.
Great soundtrack too.
Oh, beautiful soundtrack. Curated by Trent Reznor and Atticus Finch. Oh my God. Like, my God, you know? So no,
they really swung for the fences on that one.
No, this is, you know what? I want to get into 4K movie ownership, physical media ownership, and have that.
I've started my collection.
Okay. So this is one that I would go, okay, I'm getting the 4K of this.
Yeah, I did that for the Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies too, because they look, I mean, they're made for that high def palette.
Okay, so the biggest thing I think I would need to answer for myself is like, if I want to, you know, make an electronic investment in what I've got going on at home right now, is there a 4K TV that I should be looking at that you think is like, yep, this one, you know, did you go through a period of time of researching what's the right TV to be watching all of this stuff?
I did. I spent $60 to be a Consumer Reports person for a year before I bought my most recent television. And I'm going to give you a pro tip here that I found. Everyone thinks, Black Friday, right? That's the day you got to pick TVs.
Cyber Monday?
No, not even that. Here's the problem. So they want you to come because they want to give you such a great friggin' deal on a TV that you're like, I've got to buy it. This TV was $300 and today it's only $70. Right. I got to buy this one. The problem with those extreme deal days is they're extreme discounting the lowest end most of the time, right? So if you think you're going to walk away with $200 and get, a cinema quality experience, you just aren't. And those are the ones that take up most of the oxygen in the room, right? Right. So I ended up buying an OLED Samsung from Costco. Okay. And one of the reasons was I am big when it comes to my blacks. So I don't want that weird, like, gray kind of pixelated look when they're trying to make it. I want a nice, deep, rich black tone when it's supposed to be night, right? Like when I watched Batman 89, I want to be blown away by how dark Tim Burton shot that and be like, you're a crazy man.
Right.
And so this is the one that scored the highest for that. It scored high for not having to heat, another issue too, like where it's not going to have a fan noise that happens. I don't care about some of the stuff where like, oh, it's got backlit LEDs so that it'll change as you go along. Be like, no, that's garbage. That's horse crap. And I also wanted something too that had a stand that I could stand. So I, at the time, had a entertainment center in my living room, and so it was going to sit on top of the entertainment center. And I have had stands that are just garbage. It take up too much space, or the spread is so wide that like all of a sudden you can't do anything. So that was a big thing too, because I use Amazon Fire boxes for essentially my smart TV aspect, because I don't think any single company has really figured out the smart TV experience. I think that leave that to Amazon. They got it great with a little box. But I wanted the box to be fully visible so that I could have line of sight and I could see, like if the yellow band is going, it means it's searching for the internet, blah, 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 stuff like that. Right. So I did a ton of research, and I think that I would tell you to do the same. But to say, like, listen, if you're going to invest, right? Like, don't be like, oh, hey, look at this Insignia brand Fire TV that I can get for $150 marked down from $500. Yeah. We have one of those in our bedroom, and it's fine for when I'm sick and I need something playing in the background, but the colors and the refresh rate is another thing that I've really come to understand is important. And so if you get like a 60 hertz refresh rate, dude, just throw that in the garbage right away. Like that is the type of thing that like they have in an oil. If you're getting your oil changed and there's a TV mounted and bolted to the wall, that is a 60 hertz refresh rate.
Well, hold on though. 60 hertz refresh rate is actually kind of standard. And you do want it for accuracy sometimes with a lot of. Oh,
you want 240. Like the higher that you go on that refresh rate, especially on those like larger screens when you're watching stuff, because you can always ask it to like dumb itself down.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
But like if that's your max when you hit it. So like I've noticed that the refresh rate really plays in when you're watching sports.
Yes.
And
okay.
Like,
yep. That makes total sense. Yep.
And so like. You want to have options. You don't want to be like shackled down and be like, oh no, I'm going to watch this football game, but it looks like I'm watching it on an old TV. And I do think there's a place. I've been thinking about getting myself an older television to have in the basement that I can have my classic consoles plugged into, because I have not found an experience where I think they look good on a newer television, even when I put it into like the different aspect ratio. Because you're either running it through like an HDMI type deal, because no one's putting those RCA backs, the red, the white, and the yellow into the back of TVs anymore. Yep. And I also optical audio. I'm a big fan of optical audio these days. Yeah.
Sure.
So like if you're going to, and that's the other thing too, is these TVs are not made for great sound. So you're also going to need to add some kind of a sound bar or like a Bose like surround sound if you want to go for it.
I have a
nerd.
I have an older, probably late 90s Sony stereo receiver with really giant speakers. So Beautiful. I just run the audio out of my computer into that. And so I'm just getting a stereo pair, but it sounds fantastic. It sounds more than I would probably really need it to be. However, I think if I'm trying to, what I'd love to have is like the ability to have a viewing experience where I can go, okay, this is about as close to how the filmmakers wanted me to see it. It's not in a movie theater, obviously. That would be the way to see it. But if they really want you to experience it with, surround sound and the screen calibrated in such a way. I know some of these TVs, my understanding is that they have like a filmmaker mode, quote unquote, where they can actually accept metadata that the filmmakers specify. I would love to have that just to go, okay, I don't want to take the guesswork out of it for me. If I'm going to watch a Chris Nolan movie, fine, Chris Nolan, you have a specific what you'd like me to see do, or what you'd like me to, how you'd like me to view it. I just read an article about how they're doing a new 4K restoration of Cinderella, and about how the colors have been all wrong for years in like the VHS and DVD and initial Blu-ray releases of them, because they've been like copies of copies of copies. And like one of the mice, like he's got his jacket always looks like it's like a mustard color, but in fact it's a green. And that was what the lady who was doing these character designs had intended, was for these green colors, and they got muted over time. And so like for that, I want to go like, okay, you know what? I want to watch Cinderella in as like high of quality as I possibly can.
Sure.
In a way that the initial filmmakers was hoping I would be able to see it. I think that would be a transformative experience, because I remember Cinderella on VHS basically.
It's amazing because we actually have the technology. Like when Cinderella came out, if you didn't see it, let's say in the first month it was running, you didn't see the full thing, because back then things got dusty. They weren't cleaning celluloid on a regular basis. It was kind of throwaway. And then it got stored somewhere, and now they're able to go back. I just pre-purchased The Muppets Take Manhattan in 4K.
Yes.
Which is weird because it's the first Muppets movie to be have a 4K release, and they're adding a Frank Oz audio commentary to it because he directed it. But they scanned the original negative. And so you're working off of like the highest quality possible that they can get out to us. And that makes me excited. I thought it would be Muppet Christmas Carol, because everyone wants to buy Muppet Christmas Carol.
I'm sure that'll be coming. I mean, that's got to be on the list.
I hope so.
It would have to be on the list.
And like last year was its 30th anniversary. So you just like, come on, Disney, chop, chop.
Well, my understanding too with the Cinderella restoration is it's from a negative from the Library of Congress.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like that's what they're going from, And so I would love to see that. What was I going to say?
You're going to talk about
that's another 4K. Argument for me buying a PS5, though.
Yep.
Is to have a 4K player.
Now, I will say this. So I bought a standalone 4K player because I thought, okay. But this is before I bought the PS5. I waited years to buy my PlayStation 5 because I couldn't justify how little I was actually playing on my PS4.
Right.
Same thing happened for me with the Nintendo Wii U. I played the Wii all the time. I got the Wii U. I probably played it 5 times tops. So I had the standalone 4K player. Not all 4K players are built the same. This one was very it was like the caveman of 4K players. And I hated it so much. I'm like, eventually I was like, I got to get rid of this. And so I just put it into storage. And if I ever need another player somewhere other than where I'm pumping in my PS5.
Right.
Okay, so I had a weird moment the other day. I found myself without my vehicle because I borrowed my father-in-law's truck for the weekend and left my car at work. Then he picked up his truck on Sunday, and I walked out on Monday, and I was like, oh, God, I don't have my car. Okay. So I walked to work.
Where's my car?
Yeah. So I walked to work. And it's great. I mean, walking to work for me is 25 minutes tops, right? It's an easy walk. And I walked by Fargo South High just as it was getting ready to, the teachers were back and students come back, I think, on tomorrow as the time of this recording. But I had a thought while I was walking because with my own thinks, right? So, you know how a lot of times when they talk about the butterfly effect, or like in Loki, they talk about variance, and you think of a person's lifetime essentially as this strand, and when you make a choice, like, oh, it branches off in this weird direction, and so it looks almost like a vein, right? So I had this thought. Let's say every decision that you make, you start off on this prime line, but every decision you make is a set of doors in front of you, right? And so if you take the door in the middle, you continue down your prime timeline. If you take the door to the left, you branch off to the left, you branch to the right, blah, 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 blah. And then we think like, okay, this is where, if I take the door to the right and then all of a sudden, I win the lottery and I become the king of Norway or whatever it happens to be.
Sure.
Right? I don't think that a person's experience actually runs like that. I think that there's a lot of times where if you take branch to the left, eventually you come back to the main timeline. You just have different experiences before you come back to that. And so the idea that like you just branch off and go off in different directions doesn't make sense to me. It means that you take a detour, then you might come back to the main timeline, but you also might just be slightly adjacent to it and run parallel the whole time.
Well, the main timeline just might be the one that you are experiencing. And so whichever direction you go, that's the main timeline. Otherwise, it sounds to me like you would be saying there is a predestined path that you're going on versus like, and maybe there is. I mean, maybe it is all just like, yep, you are trapped. You have no way off of this. But I like the idea, too, of there being sort of blossoms of differentiation where maybe you split off in multiple ways. Like there's multiple JJs that go out and then come back. And like the what's the T-1000 from Terminator 2? Uh-huh. Or the version of him from Hot Shots Part 2 where he comes back as a combination of his dog, Saddam Hussein and his dog.
I love the idea too, because when I was trying to explain this and someone was like, were you like on LSD? And I said, no, but it just opened up in my mind. I was seeing these things and I thought to myself, one interesting piece of it too would be to say, okay, listen, people are by nature, habit formers and routine folks. And so maybe you always choose the door to the left. So you're constantly bubbling out, on the left side, but eventually, like, let's say if you were to look at the timeline of a person, right, and you're looking at all these branches, eventually they go to the right, and then you see like drastic changes after they go to the right because they've done something outside of their comfort zone, outside of what's normal, and just feeding out there. Like, for example, when you have like a kid, all of a sudden your branch changes drastically.
Yep.
And you might come back to that main timeline, that predestiny, but you also might not. You might, never get back to it. And it's just such a concept to me. I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to get my car wash today and I've got an option of 2 car washes,
right,
this is the one.
Or you could also be going, like you're sitting in front of someone like your Amy, your co-host on KFGO, right? So you see her Monday through Friday more than likely, right?
Correct.
For you to go like take a look at her and go, is that the same Amy that I met last week?
And here's the thing, something might have happened over the weekend to change it, so it is not. That's fucking crazy to me.
Right?
I love that. I really love that. And just, you kind of relish in like, am I the same person today that I was yesterday? There's no way that's possible, right? You've changed in some way, in a physical, biological way, but have you changed in some, mental way? Yesterday when I was watching Jurassic Park, I was watching it with the idea of like, gosh, this is a legacy. Like, Spielberg will be dead for 100 years and people will still be watching Jurassic Park being like, this is a masterpiece.
It's his best film, I think.
It really is.
I think it's his best film without question.
I'd have to really think hard about that, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that it could be in that place, right? And so I wouldn't begrudge a few other of his movies, like Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan or something like that. But for me, Jurassic Park is his greatest film. I'm
going to New York in November again this year, and it'll be a mixture of Jill and I's kind of 40th birthdays put together. In fact, we're flying to New York, and then on the way home, we're going to stop in Chicago, and then we'll be back to Fargo. But one of the things we're doing while we're in New York is we're going to see, the Shark is Broken. Have you ever heard of that play?
Yes.
So
yes.
For those of you who haven't, the premise of the play The Shark is Broken is in the movie Jaws, when they have their like, I'm tired and I want to go home, boom, 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 and they sing and then they compare scars. And Quint tells that story of, when his battleship went down and everyone being eaten by sharks. The scene ends with, it cuts to the outside, a shot of the outside of the boat, and you see the two buoys that are attached to the shark come up above the water, kind of knowing that the shark is circling them. And then it cuts to the next day. What the play asks is like, well, what happened the rest of that night? It's these three guys. And so right now, a dude named Alex Brightman, who is Beetlejuice on Broadway, in the original run, is playing the Richard Dreyfuss character. I don't remember who's playing the Roy Scheider character, but he's pretty funny. But the guy who's playing Quint is the actual son of the actor who played Quint, and he's the one who wrote this. And he looks just like his dad.
He looks exactly like him.
And I'm so, like, people say, like, listen, it's hilarious, it's thought-provoking, it's a unique take on the story that everyone knows so well already. And so it's only playing for 16 weeks, but it's the type of show I can tell already that if you have like Theater B should at one point consider this thing, right? Or it'd be a great show for a community theater, because you get this built-in frame of reference already when people walk in. Kind of like when you did Mr. Burns, right?
Right.
Like there's this, people know that episode, and so when you're watching the character trying to like talk through like all the beats, you're like, oh yeah, I love that episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, the title, The Shark is Broken, but also makes me think that this play is very meta.
Very much so.
I mean, so, how much are these characters playing their characters, and how much are they playing the actors playing those characters? Like, that would be really interesting to see. No, I love the premise of that play. I love that so much.
You hope that Alex Brightman, because Alex Brightman is technically playing Richard Dreyfuss playing,
And that's a really interesting way to use a movie IP for theater versus just doing Jaws the musical, right? Versus just doing The Lion King.
Bingo, right?
Is actually doing some sort of thing that draws, inspiration. Well, I mean, Mr. Burns is like that, right? Draws cultural inspiration from, is actually directly referencing something. The Barbie movie would be probably another example of that.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't seen that yet, but I need to, because that just looks so fun. And I am so late to the conversation on so many movies right now.
That's all right.
So I need to like catch up, but I want to watch Barbenheimer and do that whole thing.
You want to do a back-to-back?
I want to do back-to-back, but I want to do it at home. I want to do like a nice, people can leave me alone. I have to pause the movie so I can go to the bathroom kind of a situation.
This shocks me. Barbie comes out on digital like September 5th.
Okay.
And it is still the number 2 movie in America. Why would you cannibalize people going out to the theater? Because they've made going to Barbie as an experience, right? So you're seeing groups of people who are all wearing their pink, and they're going out and they're taking in Barbie in the theaters. I don't know why you do that. Take a note from Paramount and Top Gun Maverick. They let that thing play in theaters from May until October, and then they're like, November is when we'll actually put this.
So do you think sequel's going to happen with this thing? Because it's been so successful, right? Like something that's this successful on some level in some room goes automatically into sequel talk, because it's like, hey, massive amount of money is being made. This is a franchise already, right? So what happens after this? Do you think they go that direction? I
kind of would find that to be disappointing. I know, right? Like the money train has got biscuit wheels. It's really having like the time of its life.
I both do and don't understand what you just said, but no, it makes sense.
Because like the money trains, they call it the gravy train too. Biscuit wheels.
Okay. It's not biscuit wheels.
Biscuit wheels.
For some reason, I was like, I don't understand that, and yet I do.
Yeah, you could roll with that with biscuit wheels. Judging from the movie itself, I think that making a sequel, I mean, you need to get a group of people who are so deeply understanding of what they tried to accomplish with the first one to say, like, can we do it again before they actually create something? Now, that being said, I think the best thing in the world would be like, hey, listen, give Greta Gerwig all the room she needs to explore whatever her next project is. Margot Robbie clearly is a big star. Let's get her to do some other things.
Well, and a really savvy producer. I mean, she's one of the producers of that movie.
And I think that what's interesting about her is I don't think that this role is going to define her going forward. And
she was already so established,
right?
And so superstar, A-lister way early on.
She had such interesting roles that she's taken on over the years. Thank God that Pan Am television show didn't last longer. She'd just be doing that schlog still. But, you think of her in The Wolf of Wall Street. You think of her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. I think her Harley Quinn is fantastic.
So good, right?
Especially in the James Gunn Suicide Squad. I think they really capture the personality and who she is kind of as a human being.
You came back to save me?
Yeah. yeah. She's this insane villain, but you root for her. You like her.
I also think let's give Bruce Timm some more credit because that Harley Quinn was designed for Batman the Animated Series, and they're like, oh, this is a great character. We're going to really do a lot with this. And be like, but Bruce Timm, you are the one who ushered that in, and we appreciate it. I know they've gone in a lot of different directions for that. But also, there's a Suicide Squad game that's supposed to be coming out in the next year.
Is that the one where they're fighting? They're killing the Justice League?
Yeah.
I've seen cutscenes from it and stuff, so I don't know what that. I'm assuming I'd be able to play it on the PS5. But
I bet you would.
I have no idea.
Nope. It turns out it's a PS2 game.
And how many clamshells, how many greenbacks, how many Monopoly dollars do I spend to get a PS5? What are they retailing for?
Okay, here's my hot tip for you. If you want to get it, let me take you to Costco and get it at Costco. So I bought mine for $5.50, but it came bundled with an extra controller, a year of PS Plus, God of War, and this charging station for the controllers.
Got it.
And the same thing at Target was like $700.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a pretty massive discount. But the nice thing is that Costco honors a lifetime warranty on that PS5. I tell this story to people when I'm like, listen, Costco's return policy is amazing because they believe in their customers and they've got the fighting power to take on Sony. You don't. So my PS3, the drive stopped spinning, just stopped spinning. And it was 1 week outside of my 2-year manufacturer's warranty. So Sony's like, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. It's outside the warranty. Tough. So someone said, where'd you get it? I said, Costco. And they said, just bring it back to Costco. I said, well, I don't have the box. I don't have anything. They're like, don't worry. So I took a grocery bag and I put the PS3 in it and I put the power cord. I didn't put the HDMI. I brought one controller, even though it came with two, and I brought it back. And when I bought it, it came bundled with 2 controllers, the PS Plus, and all this stuff. And so I said, this has stopped working. They're like, okay, go grab another one off the shelf. And I said, but don't you need to? And they're like, nope. And I'm like, there's no box. And they're like, nope, doesn't matter. Go grab a new one off the shelf. And so I grabbed a new one, which came with 2 controllers and a year of PS Plus, because that's how it was bundled all together. And so I got an extra year of PS Plus for free. I essentially got another controller for free. Nice. And I asked them, I'm like, well, why are you doing this? They're like, well, because Costco not carrying PlayStations would be bad for Sony.
Got it.
And so we will do battle, and we'll get Sony to credit us back for this thing, so don't worry about it. And I'm like, that is amazing. Thank you, Costco.
Yeah.
You did me just on a fine level.
Should I do the same thing for if I decide to upgrade my television?
TVs they won't do anymore.
Okay.
And this is why. A couple bad apples spoiled the barrel. Because what they would do with TVs is they would give you what you paid for the television in a Costco credit towards a new television.
Okay.
And so people were bringing their TVs back every year and just upgrading for a couple $100, right? And so they ended up with just this huge amount of TVs. Now, their TV return policy is still great, but it's not as perfect. A previous guest, Tim Larson, once told me that when he worked at Costco, people would buy plants in the spring, not do anything with them, and then bring them back as husks and get their money back. And I'm like, that is crazy. Crazy. Apparently there's a story of like someone who let like a bunch of meat go bad. Like they didn't get through, they bought a big tube of meat and half of it rotted before they were able to eat it, and they didn't freeze it because they're stupid. They got a refund on their tube of meat.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Meat sleeves.
So what a world we're living in where Costco becomes the corporate entity that we're all like, hail to the old Costco.
Well, I'm going to hold off on making these purchases and think about them for a while. But if I decide to go forward with the PS5, I'll definitely ask for your help going to a Costco and getting access to it.
It's great. Have you been into a Costco?
Yeah, it's just been years. I mean, I don't really buy in bulk. And when I buy anything in bulk, it's typically on Amazon. Just send it to me. But that's the paper products, toiletries, things like that I like. I've got a bunch of soap that I know I'll go through in the next year, and so I don't have to. One
of my favorite things is sending you Simics meatballs is on sale, like notifications, and they haven't been on Uber sale for a while. So like my Simics, like I used to have just a ton of packages in my freezer. I've depleted all of my packages.
Sure, I have no Simics meatballs in my freezer right now. Lately, my thing has been buying the cheapest frozen pizza you can, which typically like Jack's, right? Or there's another one around like that same level, I think with an R.
Sure.
I can't remember. Basically the same thing, but packaged differently. Buying those when they're on sale, and then just adding a bunch of pepperoni to the top of it.
Sure, dolling it up on your own.
And it makes it so much better. It really does.
Hey, I have a suggestion for you.
Okay.
So I know you like Indian food.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy little naan breads,
Right.
Make your own naan pizza.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
It's really good. In fact, the first person who ever told me about it was Natalie Deutsch-LaPlante. And she goes, yeah, we did this and we threw, like some garlic on it and all this stuff. And I was like, that sounds friggin' amazing. And she goes, yeah, you just put it under the broiler and it kind of crisps up a little bit. I was like, oh, that sounds good.
That's what I use the broiler to reheat all my pizza.
For dinner last night, I just had bruschetta that Jill had made because she had family over and they were gonna have appetizers, but they ended up eating lunch late, so they skipped the appetizers. And so I ate bruschetta for dinner, and I stunk all night long. I smelled like onions and garlic. Thank God I was all by myself because I must have smelled like I just rolled off of an Italian dinner. It was so good though. Oh my gosh, I can think about it right now. It's juicy and so good. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. My apologies. It turns out Ken was a figment of my imagination, but to be honest, it was a very realistic looking figment.